Luka Doncic notoriously takes great pleasure in demoralizing the Phoenix Suns on their home floor. I mean, he does it every time he gets the chance. But the latest chapter of his Valley Villain storyline was the best one so far. Luka literally turned into the Grinch and ruined Christmas for Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and the entire Suns roster. He dropped a 50-point, 15-assist performance and once again proved why he's the greatest offensive creator in the NBA. In that single game, he created 92 points out of 128 that the Mavs scored. Let that sink in for a moment. Luka passed 10,000 career points in regular season play with a whopping 34-foot step-back three-pointer in the first quarter, and at that point, every Phoenix fan and player was reminded of the inescapable ghosts from the 2022 playoffs, especially the game where the Mavs beat them by 33 points in Game 7. This time, however, they were getting annihilated by both his individual scoring and playmaking, which just seemed like one of one, and could only be compared to like Nikola Jokic on a good day. And as if Luka's 50 points weren't enough, only 11 days earlier, Phoenix gifted another opposing player 50 points and a victory. Ironically, it was Jalen Brunson, a former Maverick who happened to have one of the most efficient 50-point games in NBA history. And then 2 days prior to that, Spencer Dinwiddie, also a former Maverick, nailed it in the fourth quarter to help Brooklyn beat the Suns. It seems like no matter what they do, Phoenix is permanently haunted by what happened at the 2022 playoffs. It's also worth mentioning that Luka became the first player since 1984 to score 50+ points on Christmas, and made history by tying Bob McAdoo as the 7th quickest player to hit the 10,000 point mark. It took him only 358 regular season games, which is above impressive when not compared to Will Chamberlain, who only needed 236 and whose record will probably never be broken. But Luka did achieve that in fewer games than LeBron and KD, who were both scoring machines that were handed the keys to their offense from day one. At this point, it just seems like there's nothing that could surprise us when it comes to Luka's individual numbers. Taking the Mavs roster construction since 2018 and this season's injuries into consideration, he's responsible for way more offensive creation than any player in the league, and nobody else is even close. See, that game against Phoenix was Luka's 6th career game with 50 or more points scored, giving him the 6th most among all players aged 24 or younger. And honestly, the way things are looking right now, there's quite a big chance he adds a couple more to his portfolio before he turns 25 on February 28th, since quite often, he truly looks unguardable. As a defending player looking to guard Luka, scoring is always going to be the #1 concern. Most of that is due to his size and ability to destroy various switches, since he's able to handle both smaller guards and plotting big men on pretty much every occasion. But there's one mistake quite literally every team is making when trying to defend him. They're all sending doubles. But we cannot really blame them for that. There's a reason why defenses fall into the trap of doubling superstar scorers. Both players and coaches are too prideful to allow a single opponent to beat them over and over and over again. And that's exactly what happens in Luka's case. He's an MVP caliber player, and when he catches fire early on in the game, teams overreact and try to literally rip the ball out of his hands. And what happens next is obvious. It's just not in human nature to get destroyed one-on-one again and again, and to be okay with the outcome. It just doesn't work like that. We see players like Doncic, Jokic, or prime James Harden in Houston get doubled all the time, but it's just something you can't instruct your offense to do, unless of course you're looking for either a Detroit Pistons level season or no chance to survive at all. Sending full doubles or putting 2 on the ball for just a couple seconds is a recipe for failure. The problem for teams who like doing that though is that Luka is way too intelligent when he notices a defensive miscommunication coming from the opposing team. If you make a switch, it has to be a matchup you're willing to live with, because if not, it's hallelujah, but it'll probably be hallelujah anyways. When a second defender enters the picture, Luka will torment the backside rotations, and it usually looks something like this.
AJ Lawson looking to set a screen on the switch. Doncic pitches cross court, and the bucket is good. Jaden Hardy.
On this possession, Luka knows Gordon will rotate to the spot-up threat on the wing, which would of course be the right pass if the play was frozen. So to trick him, he looks in the direction of his open teammate, AJ Lawson in this case. This moves Gordon towards him a little, after which Luka fires a laser to Jaden Hardy in the weak side corner. What's also impressive is how the pass comes at the exact moment Gordon starts to rotate. Luka's timing and anticipation are simply unmatched. And mind you, he's only been in the league for 6 years. Luka simply knows that once the defense starts to overload him, his passing velocity and precision will completely annihilate their rotations, which makes up for easy buckets. With his abnormal height for a point guard, he has VIP access to some passing angles less than 1% of players in that position can relate to, like this one here. Again.
Doncic just has the vision to see over the top of the defenders.
Again, they sent doubles Luka's way, and he hit them with a weak side corner, right into the shooting pocket. And he does that every time. It's hard to withstand the damage of him scoring 40 points and spreading the wealth as well. Playing against him literally feels like a game of pick your poison, and honestly, there's a higher chance of winning a game against the Mavs if you force Luka to score 60 on his own. Still much less than 92, which he helped create against the poor Suns. See, the Mavs thrive the most on a version of the Horns play, where 2 players are at the elbow, 2 shooters in opposite corners, and Luka operating on top. Whenever he chooses the screener he wants, the other Maverick clears out and occupies the help defender. Here's an example of such play.
Doncic. This is not last year's half-court team.
The Suns give up a switch when Luka tries to pick on Drew, but also have Grayson Allen coming back to double the ball. But there's one more thing happening. Lively is diving to the rim, because of which the backside rotations have to be timely. In case they aren't, the roller is catching a perfect pass deep inside the paint. And that's exactly what happened here. When your plan is to give Luka an extra defender, the entire defense kind of falls apart for a second, which leads to tougher rotations. But that second is enough for Luka to get rid of the ball, and then there's no room for error. Then sometimes, when the weak side defenders simply aren't quick enough at containing the ball, there's another gap that suddenly opens, like in this case.
A bucket and a rebound.
And Grayson Allen's a guy that needs to knock down shots for this team.
Baseline drive in the jam.
But then sometimes, Luka is able to create a clown town out of the defense even without being doubled. All he's got to do is bring the attention of multiple defenders away from the paint. And what this creates is a split second of unawareness that his teammates can exploit, and then it's down to his expert level passing to give them lobs at the rim.
Doncic, the lob and the flush. Derek Jones Jr.
Even though we've only looked at the Christmas game against the Suns, those plays happen all the time. And as you can see, there's a reason Luka is high in the MVP conversation right now. He's one of the few players in history that's able to carve up any coverage thrown his way. To put things in perspective, when compared to LeBron James when he was 358 games into his career, Luka was 332 points, 628 rebounds, and 554 assists ahead of LeBron's totals. Now, the only reason it might not be realistic for Luka to actually reach LeBron on the league's all-time scoring list is because of the way LeBron took care of his body for 2 decades, and how he avoided all those injuries that sidelined players for months. But if there's a player who can contend for the top spot, it's definitely Luka Doncic. If his incredible offensive season continues, Doncic will have his team in position for home court advantage in the Western Conference playoffs. Plus, he'll have one of the strongest arguments for the MVP award, with all those critics finally put to sleep.